Hey there, I'm Rachel, and I have two things: an MFA in screenwriting and a fabulous talent for never having seen a movie. The movie I haven't seen today is Kiki's Delivery Service. Why haven't I seen this? So it's possible I did see this in the first grade. I'm pretty sure the extended day I went to had a Ghibli movie, but it just as easily could have been Totoro, and I don't remember anything about it. A few years ago now, 8-ish years ago now, I decided I was gonna catch up on all the Ghibli movies. I've seen 3: Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and, regrettably, Grave of the Fireflies. I bought this 2 years ago, intending to watch it, and it's still in its plastic, so yeah, you can see how that skill of mine works. What do I know about it? Kiki is a witch. Yes, she has a delivery service. This is the one, I know that GIF, right, that's and I'm pretty sure this is the movie with the cat, right, the Ghibli movie with the black cat, whose name is Gigi? Cultural osmosis is weird. Yeah, so, let's take a look at Kiki's Delivery Service. You guys, no one told me it was this cute. To be fair, everyone told me it was that cute. Okay, so I had kind of medium expectations for this movie. I know it's, one of the shinier jewels in the Ghibli crown, so I figured it would be well done. I just wasn't sure that I was going to connect with it. I thought, I don't want to say too old, because you can't be too old for an animated movie, but I just wasn't sure about it. But it turns out that the right age to connect with Kiki's Delivery Service might be 27, because I felt this movie a lot. I both want her life immensely and feel in some ways like I already have it. I think I saw somewhere Kiki's Delivery Service related to millennial burnout, and yeah, I get that. That makes sense. So, I was expecting it to be a pretty good movie. I wasn't expecting to give it the highest honor that I can give a movie, which is to watch it twice. So, obviously, I don't actually get around to watching movies that often. So when I do, and I see one that I like enough to immediately watch again in the next couple days, that's kind of the highest prize of wow, yeah, I really liked this movie. Yeah, so mix yourself up a hot chocolate and let's talk about Kiki's Delivery Service. So, Kiki's Delivery Service. I've made a beat board to sort of lay out the story along the 3-act structure. Now, 3-act structure is more of an art than a science, and a tool, not a formula. So, just get that out of the way. So this is just sort of my argument and how the movie makes sense broken down to me in a way that, we can see it. You could definitely make arguments for other points in the story, but just to kind of first get the lay of the land here. So, Act 1, we have, obviously, starts at the beginning of the movie, and I say it ends when Kiki spends her first night in the room above the bakery and decides she's going to stay in town. It can be helpful to think of acts as asking questions. And the question the first act is asking is, will Kiki find a new city to live in? Answer, yes. The second act is when she actually begins her delivery service. Now, the second act, especially the first half, Act 2A, is sometimes called the promise of the premise. So this is, right, if you watch a movie about a witch who delivers things, this is where you really see, okay, witch who delivers things. And that can be a lot of fun. So I say it starts when she begins her delivery service, and the question kind of is, will she succeed at making this delivery business work? Answer, no, at least not yet. So I'm arguing that the act ends when she decides to take a break from her business and go visit Ursula in the cabin. And then the midpoint, so Act 2 is bisected by a midpoint, which is a tension shift within this larger will she succeed. And I'm arguing that that's when she delivers the herring pie to the granddaughter who's so rude about it, and then gets sick and misses her party. Up until now, all of her kindness and her generosity and her hard work has really been rewarded by the people she's helping. But for the first time, she's gone above and beyond once again, and it hasn't paid off. And I think that really sets the shift to, will she succeed at this? Not yet. Sometimes you hear the lowest point or the all is lost moment talked about. I'm arguing that that's when she's sitting there crying, carving a new broom. She's broken her broom, her powers aren't working, and she's just before that scene says, if she's lost her powers, she's lost everything. Pretty clear. And then, final act is asking a new question. Will she heal from this? Will she be able to take her business back up? Will she get her powers back? And we go through the trip to Ursula's, talking about artist block, the big dirigible rescue, and then she finally has her powers and has found her place. So yes, she'll get her powers back, and we're answering the larger question that the whole movie is asking, which starts in the very first scene, which is, will Kiki be able to succeed at this leaving for home for a year and find her place in a new city? Yes. So, that is kind of that's the rundown of Kiki's Delivery Service. That's where we're at. And I think the way to talk about this movie actually might be to talk about what it would look like if it were a worse version of itself. Because this is a very gentle and kind of understated movie, and it works beautifully, but that can be kind of hard to unpack. So that has partly to do with the fact that it's Japanese and partly to do with the fact that it's a few decades old. So I definitely think this same story written in America for an American audience today would look very different. And it might look a little bit more like this. So when we meet Kiki, she has this sort of vague task to go live in a city for a year as part of her witch training. And that ends up being this sort of very beautiful, very character-driven story about her finding her place. But I think the Western version of that, she would have a different goal. It would be like, okay, you must go live in a city, live in a new city, find your talent, find your task, and if you don't, by this day or time, by this situation, you will lose your powers. So we have a ticking clock and we have the end goal already set up from the beginning. The film does set up its finale in the beginning. The very first scene, she's listening to the radio about the airship landing. So airship stuff is in green. And these little circles are just representing little hits where it's in the background, where it's on the radio or the TV or somebody's talking about it. And it's kind of the background noise to the scene. It's not the main object. It's not really visually seen in the scene. That doesn't happen until she takes the bike plane ride with Tombo. But I think, the American version of this story would be a lot clearer about her goal. I also think it would be a lot clearer about her enemy. So early on we meet the rude witch who's like, well, I'm almost done. It must look big to you. Right, so that sets up a contrast between Kiki and a type of person who she is not like. Then in Act 2, we meet some city girls who are actually some of Tombo's friends who are talking about the birthday party that they'll all be going to in a bit. And Kiki clearly feels left out, and she's complaining about her dress, which she doesn't like the color of, and she seems to want to fit in with these girls. And right after that, these are both around when she goes to the grocery store, she looks at some red shoes in the window. She really wants them, and she thinks that would make, her fit in. But that's the last we see of that. That's just sort of a want that she has, and it represents her larger desire of fitting in, but we don't return to the shoes. I think a worse version of this movie would maybe put the shoes as a symbol, and she's doing all of these deliveries specifically to afford them, and then she gets them when she goes to the party, but it all goes wrong. Something like that. Again, so we have the rude granddaughter really sets up the midpoint, and that's important. And then the granddaughter with the city girls, when they go to see the dirigible, that sort of sparks Kiki's crisis, that she doesn't fit in, she feels like such an outsider. But the girls didn't really do anything. It's much more subtle than that. And I think that makes it feel very real to me. Right? It's not like she's in a rivalry with one of these other girls. Maybe a worse version of this movie would put her in a rival with another witch who gets to stay in the city. If she loses her powers and she fails, other girl gets the city and she has to go home a failure, right? Something very concrete. And although the city girls spark her crisis, they're not a part of resolving it. She doesn't have to prove herself to them or get her, sort of mean girls comeuppance moment. It's a much more personal journey. And I love that. That's something I adore about this movie, that it's very content to just be itself. One scene I think really illustrates that is the very beginning of Act 2. She's decided to stay at the bakery, and the next morning she goes down to the bathroom, and the baker comes out, and she hides behind the bathroom door, waits till he leaves, and then scrambles up the stairs so she doesn't have to bump into him. Now, whether that's because she's in her nightgown or it's just awkward, I don't know, but like that scene doesn't need to be in the movie. It doesn't really tell us anything about the plot. She's not in conflict with the baker. She doesn't feel unwelcome in Asono's home or anything. It's just about her feeling comfortable and fitting in, and the movie takes the time for us to be there with her in that moment. And I just think that's really lovely. There's another moment where she's walking through the city and she just sort of takes a second to stop and look through a gate into a garden. Now, this isn't going to be an important location later. It's not going to be, oh, this place she's seen, she needs this information to complete the finale. It's just her taking a second to admire her new city. And stories like that can be really hard to write, because at least the worst version of this, if it comes out bad, well, at least you have some clear pieces. She needs to beat the witch in order to not lose her powers, to complete the goal, to get to the end. And a story like that might not mean much to a good chunk of its audience, but it'll be there. It'll be a movie. You can eat popcorn. Like, it's fine. A story like this that is so much softer, I mean, if you do it badly, it's boring. That's the trade-off here. But if you can do it well, and obviously, Miyazaki and Ghibli can do it well, you end up with something really beautiful and a world that just feels very lived in. Because it's not only the big moments. I mean, we do have a big dramatic rescue at the end, but this thing with the dirigible really feels secondary to Kiki making this journey and, kind of losing herself and finding herself again. And that also sort of allows the movie to get away with not feeling episodic, where I think otherwise it might have. Like this trip to Ursula's at the end, it's set up kind of when she meets Ursula, but she just pops back in and they have this very kind of frank conversation about artist block. And in a worse movie, that would feel very on the nose. It would feel like, okay, we are shoving the theme, we are shoving the finale because we didn't quite get it in here before, she has to go do a rescue and get her powers back. But at least to me, in this movie, it felt very earned because her life feels so lived in. And that's the way you talk when you're having a problem. you confide in someone and you talk about your worries and you get some advice, and sometimes you just kind of have to wait for it. Yeah, so this was Kiki's delivery service. I loved it a lot, and I definitely think it will be one that I revisit again, especially when I'm, here and I want to get here. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out.